Chapter 26. The Motorists' Club. Yevgeny spent 3 straight evenings reading Ilf and Petrov's new book. With every page, the cashier's heart swelled with excitement. The hero of the book was him, the cashier, no doubt about it. Yevgeny saw himself in every detail. The hero had his habits, copied his jokes word for word, even wore the same outfit, a mustard-colored army shirt and pants that draped over high-heeled shoes. The cashier's cage of Dear Sir was described down to the last detail. Ilf and Petrov clearly had no imagination. Even the name was almost the same, Azhagin. At first, Dear Sir was thrilled. He'd been described perfectly. "Anyone who knows me will recognize me," the cashier said proudly. But by chapter 6, when the author casually pinned a theft of 5,000 rubles from the cash box on the cashier, Dear Sir let out a nervous laugh. Chapters 7, 8, and 9 were all about Dear Sir's wild parties with ladies of the night in the most seductive dens of Kaluga, where, according to the author, the cashier had gone into hiding. That night, Yevgeny skipped dinner. He sat on a park bench under a street lamp, reading about his own fantastic life in the pink glow. At first, he was scared his bosses would find out about his adventures, but then, remembering he'd never done any of it, he calmed down and even felt flattered. After all, it wasn't just anyone. Ilf and Petrov had picked him as the hero of his sensational new novel. Yevgeny started to feel much smarter and better than the unlucky embezzler the writer had portrayed. In fact, he began to look down on his criminal double. For one thing, the hero of the novel chose the criminal cokehead Esmeralda, flat chest, predatory teeth, and a throaty voice, over sweet Natasha, full chest, green eyes, and strong hips. If it were up to Yevgeny, he'd have picked even the simple Fenishka, ample chest, healthy blush, and strong hips, over that scoundrel Esmeralda who was into hips. Yevgeny got even more annoyed when his double stupidly lost 2,000 rubles at the races. Yevgeny would never do something so childish. The very thought made him spit in disgust. Only thing the writer got right, in Yevgeny's opinion, was the descriptions of the bars, dinners, and all kinds of snacks. The bars were described with real expertise, youthful passion, and a love for the details. Salmon, for example, was compared to the thighs of a young girl from Chios. The grainy caviar, an essential in both French boulevard novels and Russian semi-serious ones, wasn't forgot. At least half a pood of it was described. Every main and side character in the novel ate it. That hurt Yevgeny. He wouldn't have shared the caviar with anyone. He'd have eaten it all himself. Champagne bottles, Martel cognac. The author didn't know the best brands, fruit, the silky curve of a lady's leg, maitre d's, starched tablecloths, cars, and cigars, all of it piled up into a luxurious heap, from under which the embezzler only crawled out in the last chapter, just to turn himself in to the police. After finishing the novel, called The Waves Flight, Yevgeny shivered in the evening chill and went home to sleep. But he couldn't sleep. His double haunted his imagination. The next day, leaving the office, Dear Sir took 5,000 rubles with him, the exact amount his criminal double had stolen. Dear Sir decided to use the money wisely, copy all of Azhagin's achievements, but avoid his mistakes. That evening, Yevgeny was learning from experience and avoiding mistakes in the company of some girls from Petrovsky lines. The exchange of experience cost him 100 rubles. At dawn, sobered up, Dear Sir wandered down Tversk Boulevard, from the Pushkin statue to the Timuryev monument. Didn't show up at the office that day. A line formed at the cashier's window. Reporter Persitsky, who'd begged for a small advance and had been waiting for half an hour, started raising hell. They sent a courier to look for Yevgeny. He wasn't home either. Everything else happened fast. They opened and checked the cash box. Then a company administrator went to the police to report the missing cashier and money. To his shock, he found Yevgeny already there, sitting behind the desk in the station, crying awkwardly like a grown man. The loss of 100 rubles had scared him so much that he'd run straight to confess. The remaining 4,900 rubles were returned to the company that same day. Persitsky got his advance, and Yevgeny, since the loss was minor, was released after a brief interrogation and a promise not to leave town. Yevgeny came back to the office, too embarrassed to talk to anyone, wandering the long corridors of the House of Nations. The supply manager passed by, dragging a soft chair bought at auction for the editor. Staffers rushed past with stacks of notes. Someone was looking for the candy section, asking in a weak voice. People asked Yevgeny for directions to the exit or where to submit a lost document notice. A young man with a huge briefcase kept pestering him about subscribing to the great Soviet encyclopedia in faux leather bindings. In short, he was asked all the questions people ask when running through the corridors of a Soviet institution. Yevgeny didn't answer. The staff sensed something was wrong. Rumors spread, soon confirmed. Yevgeny was fired for cashbox irregularities. They called Petrov. Petrov was delighted. "Aha," he shouted into the phone. "Bullseye, give my regards to Dear Sir." "What? The amount was small. Doesn't matter, it's the principle." But Petrov couldn't come in person. He was busy wrestling with his next big topic, suicide. Meanwhile, the editorial office was scrambling to get material ready for print. They pulled articles and notes from the pen, counted up the lines, and started the daily battle for space. Paper with its 4 pages could fit 4,400 lines. Everything had to go in: telegrams, articles, news, letters from worker correspondents, ads, 1 satirical poem and 2 in prose, cartoons, photos, special sections, theater, sports, chess, editorials, notices from Soviet party and professional organizations. the serialized novel, reviews of city life, little grains of news, popular science, radio, and all sorts of random material. Altogether, there was enough for 10,000 lines, so dividing up the space was always dramatic. First to the editor's secretary was the head of the chess section, Maestro Sudikin. He asked, politely but with a hint of bitterness, "What, no chess today?" "No room," the secretary replied. "The feature's too big, 300 lines." "But it's Saturday, readers expect the Sunday chess section. I have puzzle answers, a lovely Nunavako study, and—" "Okay, how many lines do you need?" "At least 150. "Fine, since you have puzzle answers, you get 60. Maestro tried to beg for 30 more lines for the Nunavako study. He'd been sitting on a brilliant Indian game, Tartakower, Bogolyubov, for over a month, but he was pushed aside. Persitsky came in. "Should I run the impressions from the plenum?" he asked quietly. "Of course," the secretary shouted. "We talked about it the day before yesterday." "The plenum's ready," Persitsky said even softer, "and I have 2 sketches, but they won't give me space." "What do you mean? Who did you talk to? Are they crazy?" The secretary ran off to argue. Persitsky followed, plotting as he went, and behind them came the ad department guys. "We have Sekharov's solution," they called out sadly. "Solution goes in tomorrow. Today we run our supplements. You'll make nothing from your free ads, but we've already been paid for the solution." "Fine, we'll sort it out tonight. Give your ad to Pasha, she's on the night shift." The secretary sat down to read the editorial. He was immediately interrupted. The artist came in. "Ah," said the secretary, "good. We need a cartoon, something about the latest telegrams from Germany." "I was thinking," the artist said, "a steel helmet and the general situation in Germany." "Great, put something together and show me." Artist went to his department, grabbed a square of drawing paper and sketched a skinny dog. On its head he put a German helmet with a spike. Then he started labeling: Germany on the body, Danzig corridor on the curly tail, dreams of revenge on the jaw, Dawes plan on the collar, and Stresemann on the tongue. In front of the dog he drew Poincaré holding a piece of meat. He wanted to label the meat too, but it was too small, so he drew a tag like on a bottle and wrote in tiny letters, "French security guarantees." To make sure no one confused Poincaré with anyone else, he wrote Poincaré on the premier's belly. The sketch was done. Art department's tables were covered with foreign magazines, big scissors, jars of ink, and white paint. On the floor were scraps of photos, someone's shoulder, someone's legs, bits of landscape. 5 artists scraped photos with razor blades, brightening them, sharpening them with ink and paint, and marking the backs with size and placement instructions for the printers. In the editor's office, a foreign delegation was sitting. The staff translator listened to the foreigner, then turned to the editor and said, "Comrade Arnaud wants to know. We're discussing the structure of a Soviet newspaper." While the translator explained, Comrade Arnaud, in velvet knickerbockers, and the other foreigners stared at the giant red pen with a number 86 nib leaning in the corner. The pen nearly touched the ceiling, and its handle was as thick as a man's torso. You could actually write with it. The nib was real, just huge. "Wow," the foreigners laughed. "Colossal." The pen had been a gift from the Worker Correspondents' Congress. The editor, sitting in his special chair, smiled and nodded at the pen and the guests, cheerfully explaining. Shouting in the secretary's office continued. The quick-footed Persitsky brought in Semashko's article, and the secretary immediately cut the chess section from page 3. Maestro Sudikin no longer fought for the lovely Nunavako study. He just tried to save the puzzle answers. After a struggle more intense than his match with Capablanca at the San Sebastian tournament, the maestro managed to save a spot at the expense of Law and Life. Semashko's article went to print. The secretary tried again to read the editorial, determined to finish it out of sheer stubbornness. He hadn't managed to get to it in 2 hours. When he got to the line, however, the content of the latest pact is such that if the League of Nations registers it, we'll have to admit that. Law and Life, a hairy man approached. The secretary kept reading, deliberately ignoring him and making pointless notes. "I don't get it," said Law and Life, coming around the other side of the desk. "What's up?" the secretary mumbled, stalling. "Thing is, there was no Law and Life on Wednesday, none on Friday. On Thursday you only ran a child support case, and now on Saturday you're cutting the trial everyone's been writing about, and only we." "Who's writing about it?" the secretary shouted. "I haven't seen it. Tomorrow it'll be everywhere, and we'll be late again." "And when you were assigned the Chubarov case, what did you write? We couldn't get a single line from you." "I know, you wrote about the Chubarovites for the evening edition." "How do you know that?" "I know, people talk." "Then I know who told you. It was Persitsky, the same Persitsky who uses the office equipment to send material to Leningrad, right in front of all Moscow." "Pasha," the secretary called quietly, "bring in Persitsky." Law and Life sat indifferently on the windowsill. Behind him, birds and city game players bustled in the garden. Dispute between Law and Life and Persitsky and the editorial staff, and the staff and Law and Life dragged on. Staff from different departments gathered around. Now it was a direct duel between Law and Life and Persitsky. When things got too heated, the secretary ended it with a clever move. He cut the chess section and gave the space to Law and Life. Persitsky got a warning. It was now the hottest time in the newsroom, 5 o'clock. Smoke curled above the overheated typewriters. Staff dictated in voices made shrill by stress. The head typist yelled at the scoundrels, sneaking their material in out of turn. The office poet wandered the halls, reciting in a style like, "Listen, Earth, the rivers are waking. From mines, from fields, from every little library, 100 voices roar." He was flirting with the typist, whose modest hips inspired his poetry. He'd take her to the end of the hall, and by the window between the union office and the ladies' room, whisper words of love, to which she'd reply, "I have overtime tonight, I'm really busy," which meant she loved someone else. Then the poet would go home and write verses for his soul. "Your misty gaze calls to me. The Caucasus shines before my eyes. Your lips, your fragrant form. Oh, I am ruined by you." Poet wandered around, asking everyone the same thing. Can you spare 10 kopecks for the tram? He even tried the worker correspondence department, pushing through the desks and stacks of letters, but the readers toughest in the office, hardened by reading 100 barely legible letters a day, just ignored him. He tried the mailroom, then the office, but not only did he not get 8 kopecks, he was even attacked by the Komsomol member Avdidiev. Poet was invited to join the motorists' club. The plan was to pool money, buy an old car from the graveyard, fix it up with the help of the office driver, and really learn about cars. The poet's romantic soul was swept away by gasoline fumes. He took 2 steps to the side, shifted into 3rd gear, and disappeared. Avdidiev wasn't discouraged. He believed in the triumph of the automobile. In the secretary's office, he quietly kept up the campaign. This, of course, kept the secretary from finishing the editorial. "Listen, Alexander Isifovich. Wait, this is serious," Avdidiev said, sitting on the secretary's desk. "We've started a motorists' club. We don't have a car yet, but we want to buy one. Do you think the office would loan us 500 rubles for 8 months? Don't count on it. What, you think it's hopeless? I don't think I know. How many members do you have?" "Lots already." The club at that point consisted of just Avdidiev, but he didn't mention that. 500 rubles, we buy a car from the graveyard. Yegorov's already found one. Repairs, he says, will cost no more than 500, so 1,000 total. I figure we get 20 people, 50 each, then we'll all learn to drive. Yegorov will be the boss. In 3 months, by August, we'll all know how to drive, we'll have a car, and everyone gets a turn. We could even take a road trip. Don't make that face, it's totally doable. And the 500 for the car. The mutual aid fund will loan it to us with interest. We'll pay it back, so should I sign you up? But the secretary, already balding, overworked, with a family and an apartment to worry about, who liked to nap after lunch and read Pravda before bed, thought it over and declined. "You," said Avdidiev. "Old man, I'll show you the car. Just wait till you see us driving around under your window. We'll honk just to keep you awake." Avdidiev went to every desk, repeating his pitch. The old folks, anyone over 20 in his eyes, weren't impressed. They grumbled that they already donated 20 kopecks a year to help poor kids. They would have joined the new club, but what? Avdidiev shouted. If you could have a blue 6-cylinder Packard for 15 kopecks a year, with gas and oil paid for by the government, would you join? Go on, the old folks said. Last call, you're in the way. It looked like Avdidiev's project was a total flop. The car idea was sputtering out, but then a pioneer appeared. Persitsky slammed down the phone, listened to Avdidiev, and said, "I'm in. How many people do you have?" Avdidiev didn't lie to Persitsky. "You're doing it wrong," Persitsky said. "Give me a sheet. Let's start over." And so Persitsky and Avdidiev started a new round. "You old mattress," Persitsky said to a blue-eyed youth, "you don't even need to give money. Got a 1927 bond, for 50, even better. You give your bond to the club, we pool the bonds as capital. By August we can cash them in and buy a car." "What if my bond wins?" the youth protested. "How much do you want to win?" 50,000. "We'll buy cars with that. If I win, same thing. If Avdidiev wins, same. Whoever wins, the money goes to cars." "Got it. You'll drive your own car down the Georgian military road, the mountains, idiot. And behind you in their own cars will be Law and Life, the news desk, the crime section, and that lady from the movie column. You'll be a hit." Every bondholder secretly doubted they'd win, but they were even more afraid their neighbor would win and leave them out. So the hope of someone else's win pushed them into the club. The only worry was that no one would win, but that seemed unlikely, and anyway, the club would still have enough pooled capital to buy at least one car from the graveyard. 20 people signed up in 5 minutes. When it was done, the secretary, having heard about the club's bright future, showed up. "So guys," he said, "should I sign up too?" "Go ahead, old man," Avdidiev replied, "just not with us. We're full, no new members until 1929. Why not join the Friends of Children Club? Cheap and easy. 20 kopecks a year and you don't have to go anywhere. The secretary hesitated, remembered he really was getting old, sighed, and went back to finish the editorial. "Excuse me, comrade," a handsome man with a Circassian face stopped him in the hall. "Where's the office of the newspaper, Stanel?" It was the great schemer himself.